Hello, and welcome to Conquering Finale. My name is Jason Lafredo, and today we are acing articulations again. Specifically, we're going to look at Utilities-Change-Articulation function in Finale, which I happen to think is a little bit of an underused part of Finale. In the Utilities menu, there's this whole section called Change, and you can change all kinds of things, including articulations. It's all grayed out right now because I don't have anything selected. Now, in order to use this, we don't want to be in the Articulations tool. We want to be in the Selection tool. And then from here, we can make a selection, then go to Utilities, go to Change, and go to Articulations. And the Change Articulation Assignment dialog box appears. And now there's basically two halves to this. The top half will tell us which articulations we want to change. So we're applying the change to either all articulations or selected articulations. And if we choose that, we have the option of selecting from Articulation Selector. Any particular articulation we want to make the change to. All right, and then below that, these are the options that we can change that articulation to, right? So in the first one, we're changing to articulation, and we can select another articulation, right? So that's a simple way to swap out one articulation from another. We can also change the positioning in this section, and then this has to do with stacking, which I'll show you in a few minutes. So let me just show you a little bit of how this works and some practical uses for this. So in these first two measures, I've got all these articulations here, and I've changed my mind, and I've decided that I really want all of these to be staccatos. Well, it's easy enough. Just choose all articulations. Options change to articulation, select, and select the staccato, and you'll see that the 1 gets filled out here. And now all of these articulations will change to staccatos. Now we happen to know that we can do do effectively the same thing from the articulation tool just by selecting them all and double-clicking the S to affect the meta tool for that, right? So there's essentially two different ways to do that, and the utilities change articulation is another way. But we can also change only specific articulations using this dialog box. So if I wanted to change all of the accents here to tenutos, for example, selected articulation, select the accent, because this will be the articulation we're going to change. We're going to change it to select the tenuto. And just as easy as that, click OK. And only the accents get changed to tenutos, right? So there's a bit of it's a bit of a powerful feature in that regard, just that alone, all right? One thing to be careful about is that if you do decide to change the articulation when you have multiple articulations here, and you happen to use the change all articulations to tenutos, for example, you will end up with two sets of tenutos here. You'll get duplicates because obviously it's changing the tenuto to a tenuto, but it's also changing the staccato tenuto, and you'll get duplicates there. All right. Now there is a hidden thing that you can do with this. You can actually, from that dialog box, delete specific articulations, and it's not evident when you look at the dialog box, but if you select a passage, if I wanted to just delete the accents in this fourth bar, for example, what I can actually do is select the accents to change, select change to articulation, and then leave this box empty. Instead of selecting anything, instead of putting a number here, just leave it empty. Effectively what you're doing is you're changing the selected articulation, the accent, to nothing. And by doing so, it's effectively deleting it, and you'll see that the accent goes away. All right. Now, by now, I'm hoping that you all know about the clear selected items function, right? If I check that, we do have the option to filter for articulations, but of course, if I had done it this way, this would actually delete all of the articulations, so my staccatos would go away as well, right? So again, oops, I just chose chords by mistake. The change to nothing is sort of a backwards way of deleting just one particular kind of articulation. All right. You kind of wish there was like a second option here that's like, a checkbox that says delete articulation, but, Finale decided not to do that. So that's how you would do that. All right. And then let's talk about positioning. So in my piano part and my cello part here, I have these tenutos here. And I'm just going to go back into that window to show you some options here. Below the change to, like if that's unchecked, then there's going to be no change made to the articulations. But if we, down here, we have two different options for add to default position and add to current position, right? So let's use current position first. And essentially what this is going to do is it's going to add values that you put in these two boxes for horizontal and vertical to the current position of the articulations. Now, in the case of this piano part, I moved some of these tenutos a little bit further down just to illustrate this. When you have current position selected, it's all going to be relative to where they currently are, obviously, right? And in the horizontal field, a positive number is going to move the articulation to the right. A negative number will move the articulation to the left. So if I were to put in here negative 0.2, you'll see all of these articulations move to the left, the value of 0.2, right? The vertical values here, now this is a little bit different. The positive values will move the articulation away from the note. A negative value will move the articulation closer to the note. And obviously that's going to be different directions when depending on which way the articulation is. If it's on top, then the articulation is going to go up. If it's on bottom, the articulation is going to go down with a positive value, right? So if we put positive 0.2 here, you'll see all of them, current position, right? You'll see all of them move together down 0.2. All right, so that's changing to or adding to current position. Now, adding to default position is slightly different, and what this does is that Finale is going to first reset the position of the articulations back to its default position, and then add these values, right? So if we have default position selected, and then we choose 0.2, you'll see all of these articulations get away from the notes again, but now these articulations that I screwed up in the piano are going to be all relatively in line, like that, right? Now, the important implication of this is that if you have add to default position selected, and you have zeros in these values, effectively what you're doing is resetting the articulations to their default position, right? Makes sense. And just click OK. And interestingly, that is the state of the window when you first open it. It's applying to all articulations, and it's adding to default position. So it's like Finale saying, hey, this is the way to reset the positioning. Just open this window and click OK, and you reset the position, all right? And I do want to show you a practical purpose for this. I've set up this articulation mess in the second half of this file. And if you are a copyist that works with clients, you may have experienced something like this, where your client sends you a mess of a situation where they've moved all these articulations to weird spots and everything, and you're sort of tasked with getting everything back to normal, right? So that add to default positioning 0 is going to be a good start. And the way to do this, obviously, again, is just select all, and Utilities, Change Articulations, add to default positioning 0, and they'll start to go back to normal. Now, there's a couple things that didn't go back to normal, and you'll notice that the accents are overlapping the tenutos on my piano part here, and the reason for that is that your composer, me in this case, acting as a composer, intentionally unset or I intentionally did, your composer may not, reset the stacked state of those articulations to not stack, which is not good, right? So change articulations. That's what this last option is for. Make stacking dynamic for stacked articulations. Now, the wording is confusing, but when you check this, essentially what you're doing is you're resetting the state of all of the articulations to go back to having its stacked state. All right, so if we click OK, you'll see that now all those articulations are stacked appropriately. All right. Now you'll notice a couple other things. What that will not do is will not reset the flipped state of an articulation. In this case, they put the trill underneath these notes, which doesn't look right. And if we select one and look in the articulation menu and look at the direction, you'll see that below note is checked, right? So it will not affect the flipped state when you use that change function. And of course, this is easy to fix. We can just press U to reset that to automatic, or since we have a bunch of them, just make a drag selection and press U, and they'll all go back to where they're supposed to. Now, the one thing about this is that when you make a drag selection with articulations, it will only the handles that are attached to the notes in the current layer will be visible, right? So you see that these staccatos in the second layer did not move when I did that. So I would have to switch to layer 2, and you'll see that now all the handles are available for the layer 2 articulations. And then you can do the same thing, drag select, press U to set to automatic, all right? So that's how you would reset all of those things. So in 2 or 3 steps, you can pretty much fix all of this in one fell swoop, right? And one final caveat about using the change utility here in regards to positioning is that it will not change the positioning of an articulation that is set to manual positioning. And most of the time that only means the roll. And you'll see that it did nothing to this roll right here. And if you think about it, that makes sense because an articulation with a manual position doesn't have a default position. Its position is basically where you clicked when you entered it, right? So obviously it's not going to have any effect on that. However, you can use the change articulations positioning function if you use add to current position, because a roll does indeed have a current position, obviously. So we could use add to current position and then select -0.2, and that should move that to the left. All right. Now this could be handy if you've got a big file with a lot of piano rolls in it, and you know, they're like that. So for some reason they got messed up and they're all overlapping the chord like that. You could select all, you know, go to change articulations, filter for just the roll, right? And then add to current position, and then do that -2 value here to get it to move to the left, right? And that would be a quick way to fix all of your rolls in that manner. All right, so that is essentially the change articulations from the utilities menu functionality. Like I said, it's an important thing to know about, and hopefully you've learned a bunch of tricks that that will help you along your way with articulations. All right, so thanks for watching. I think I'm going to do one more video on acing articulations. I know I said that in the last video, but I think the next one is going to be the last one. So come back for that one. All right, so thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next video.